Good afternoon, dear teachers. I would like to present my lesson. My name is Заборник Любовь Степановна. I'm an English teacher of Назарбаев Intellectual School of Physics and Maths of Kokshetau city. So the topic of my lesson is growing pains. Firstly, I would like to introduce you to the objectives of the lesson. So to the objectives of the lesson. Use imagination to express thoughts, ideas, experiences and feelings. Discuss whether each generation thinks differently. Understand specific information and detail in texts. Negotiate in a group and work as a team, respecting each other's opinion. Highlight, analyze and solve the problems connected with growing pains. So firstly, at the beginning of our lesson, you are going to watch the video so that to guess the topic of our lesson. While watching the video, you should give some reasons how you have identified the topic of the lesson. Be attentive, please.
Britain is getting older. Our fastest growing age range is 85 plus. But the number of multi-generational homes is rapidly declining. Increasingly, elderly people are living in care homes and retirement villages rather than with families. As a result, a huge number of old people have little or no contact with young people.
Oh, it must be years since I've sat down with a teenager.
Totally out of touch with what young people talk about and how they think.
Teenagers are not interested in our age group.
And worryingly, Britain's younger generation are rapidly learning to see no value in the old.
I do think a lot of old people need to pull themselves together.
They think us younger generation are a pain in the backside.
They just see us as like some great big disappointment.
Old people don't do much with their lives, that's why they're always banging on about the past.
What's your name? Piggy. Very nice to meet you.
But what if you had the chance to meet a group of people you tried your best to ignore?
Do you know you look like Prince William?
I look like Prince William. I wish I had Prince William's money.
To learn what it really means to care.
Would you like some more? Are you finished?
I don't know.
To find out there's a whole world waiting to be explored. And that family homes can be stronger when everyone's together.
You're not supposed to say shut up.
To be fair, I didn't think she was that close-minded.
We're going to welcome Tema to the field now.
What can you learn from someone who's seen it all before?
It's important that you kept your promise and it shows you're a man.
And what can you teach someone who still has it all to do?
I thought you thought I was a yob.
No.
Two groups of people from opposite ends of modern Britain
This week I've had a family bet.
are about to bridge the generation gap.
I didn't expect to get so close to people doing this.
So I believe that you have understood the topic of our lesson. It is connected with the generation gap or growing pains. I would like to ask you, how do you understand these words? What is it connected with? Is it important nowadays to talk about this topic? Is it interesting for you as a person? Discuss with your partner what we are going to talk about during our lesson. So I'll give you some 2 minutes so that to discuss the idea of our lesson after watching the video, after discussing with your group what we are going to do. So look at these pictures. There are some pictures related to the different growing stages of our life. So it is toddler child, retired person, infant baby and adults. So your task is to identify the name for each image. So I believe that you were quite right, so that to identify that the first picture is related to teenager or child, then next one is connected with elderly, aged citizen, and one of the pictures is related to middle-aged. So please, will you check the correct answers? Yeah, right, you are. It is child, teenager, middle-aged, elderly, or aged senior citizen. So now you are to tell me something that is unique to every stage of life. For example, toddler wants to put everything in their mouths and touch everything. And so I will show you these pictures so that to identify some specific information, some actions which are quite particular, quite specific for each stage of life. It is for infant, toddler or child, adults, and retired person. Child, teenager, middle-aged, elderly, aged, and senior citizens. So I believe that you have coped with this task, and now you are teenagers and try to reconcile if you were a lovely child or a quiet one. Describe yourself. So that to describe yourself you should use at least 5 adjectives. You may use more than 5. So I have prepared for you some helpful vocabulary which you will use in your speech. A confident child, a naughty child, a diligent kid, a rebel, a tomboy, a spoiled child, an obedient one, an inquisitive child. So I believe that you will be able to apply all these words in your description yourself when you were quite little kids. So you know that sometimes you are to choose something in your life. And I would like you to imagine, what would you like to choose for your future? Would you like to be a doctor, or maybe a traveler, or maybe a scientist, or maybe some kind of manager, a businessman, a teacher, a taxi driver, or maybe a spaceman? Such a question to you. Where will you live in your future? Choose one picture where you will live and one picture where you will not definitely live, and discuss it with your partner, given reasons for your choice. For example, you will choose one of these pictures and try to justify why you have chosen this picture and why you have ignored the other one. One more pictures for you. And now, what age do you plan to retire then? There are different numbers for your retirement. 50, 52, 55, 58, 60, 62, 65, 68, 70 or 72. Try to choose one of the numbers for your retirement. And now let's dream a bit. So, looking at the pictures, try to imagine where you are going, what you are going to do on your retirement. And because you will have a lot of free time. Maybe you will read in a lot of books, or maybe you will be entertaining your grandchildren, maybe you will be traveling, or maybe your dream will be connected with planting flowers, or maybe you will be relaxing watching TV. Every age is wonderful in its own way. At the same time, there are problems typical only to a certain age. Firstly, figure out some of them in pairs. Write down and present them for your classmates to compare. Below, there are some examples of them. So, you should match these problems, match them with a particular age period and try to add more problems related to this or that age period. So you should measure the following problems. They are falling down and getting bruises, raising children, growing pains, being rejected by peers, not getting along with parents, being isolated from their own children. I believe that all these problems are quite familiar for you. Separation and divorce, anxiety for children, choosing a hobby, having some problems with their parents, being shy and tongue-tied. So you see here there are the same pictures that I have shown you at the beginning of the lesson, and you should identify the problems with these pictures as infant, baby, toddler, child, adults, and retired person. I believe that you will cope with this task quite easily. Child, teenager, middle-aged, elderly-aged, senior citizen. So I would like to show you some of the examples which are quite particular for this or that age stage. Toddler child, it is quite particular for them to fall down and get in bruises. As for adults, they are to raise children, growing pains, separation and divorce. As for the child, it is quite typical for them being shy and tongue-tied. For the teenagers, being rejected by peers, not getting along with parents, choosing a hobby, having some problems with their appearance. And as for elderly aged or senior citizen, it is quite typical for them to be isolated from their own children. So we have been dreaming a lot, and now I would like to talk about some real things. We'll discuss some questions about growing up. You are to discuss them in a group. So such questions I would like to present you for discussion. Do you get any pocket money? What are your household duties? Do you have any misunderstandings with your parents when you were young? If yes, what were the reasons? Do different generations of the same family share the same apartment or house? Is it difficult? How do you think? Why? Why not? And every time you should give reasons for your choice, for your answers. And the questions about growing up. You are to discuss them in a group, don't forget about it. Have you ever repeated your parents' example while handling your child, brother, sister, friend? Are children encouraged to work for money outside of their homes? If yes, at what age? If no, what are the reasons for it? At what age do people usually move away from their parents' home? So don't be in a hurry, you should think vigorously so that to answer all these questions and give reasons for them. So parents and children may not see eye to eye on a lot of things. Parents may criticize you for the way you wear your hair or for coming home too late. Below, I will show you the examples of misconduct that may easily make some parents angry. Rank them in decreasing order and discuss your choice with your partner. So I will clarify that you should identify these examples according to the way of significance. So you should explain your choice given the arguments. So such examples as coming back home too late, wasting your time with the internet, using slang language, shouting at your parents. I believe it is quite familiar to you. There are some suggestions. Which ones are for parents and which ones for children? You should identify. Take a deep breath and another. Then remember you are the adult. Close your eyes and imagine you are hearing what your daughter, son is about to hear. Phone a friend Remember, nobody gets everything in the world. There are other people in the world besides you. Show a little sympathy. Take a hot bath or splash cold water on your face. Ask their advice now and then on something big enough to make them feel important. Learn how to say I'm sorry. Go out somewhere with your spouse. Try to work on agreements which will eliminate some arguments in advance. Communicate with them. Please, just one sentence now and then. So now I'll give you some time for you to identify. And now there are my suggestions how to identify these examples for parents. Close your eyes and imagine you are hearing what your daughter's son is about to hear. Show a little sympathy. Ask their advice now and then on something big enough to make them feel important. Go out somewhere with your spouse. Take a deep breath and another. Then remember you are the adult. Take a hot bath or splash cold water on your face. I believe that you have coped with this task quite easily, that all these suggestions are for parents. And for children, you should bear in your mind the following suggestions. As phone a friend if you have some problems, communicate with them. Please, just one sentence now and then. Remember, nobody gets everything in the world. There are other people in the world besides you. Learn how to say I'm sorry. Try to work on agreements which will eliminate some arguments in advance. I believe that all these suggestions will be quite helpful for you to practice in your real life. So now, the following task is to make up some challenging questions related to growing plants. You should make up 2 questions and ask your classmates in a circle moving clockwise. So you are to make a circle and you should work randomly so that to ask your classmates 2 created questions. There are some examples of the questions in case of struggling, in case that you don't know how to create these questions. What problems may cause the generation gap? What conflicts do parents have with their children? What are the usual points for misunderstanding between children and parents? What do you think are the key issues in establishing one's own independence from your parents? For teenagers, what is more important, parents or peers' approval? So you should identify what is more important for them. What may be the reasons for conflict among peers? Does gender in any way influence the peers' conflict? For example, are there similar reasons for misunderstanding between 2 girls and between 2 boys? Do males make better friends than females? And now we are going to read the short profile of Jerry. So be attentive so that to read this article, and then we are going to do some tasks based on this text. So Jerry is in his early 50s. He has a good life. He is a partner in companies he has been working in for nearly 30 years. He lives in a big house in a desirable suburb of London and drives a big car. He is looking forward to his retirement, which he plans to spend living in a villa he wants to buy in Greece. Jerry feels he is entitled to his lifestyle. He has worked hard all his life and feels he deserves a little luxury. He is not really concerned about problems such as environment or how young people are supposed to afford houses. In fact, his only real worry in life is his daughter Josephine. He wishes she would start a family soon. So, firstly, so that to understand the article, I would like to present you some new words from it. So, browse suburban grody exhaust fumes. It is browse, read quickly, read at leisure. As for suburban, in the city center, outside the city. Grotty means elegant, dirty and in bad condition. Exhaust fumes, the smoke that comes out of car or transport habits. So there are two options for each word, and so you should identify the best definition for the highlighted words. So think. So now I would like to present you the correct answers for the best definitions of these highlighted words. Browse means read quickly. Suburban, outside the city. As for grotty, it means dirty and in bad condition. Exhaust fumes, it is the smoke that comes out of a car. So now there is time for us to discuss some questions together with a partner, or you may be divided into small groups. The questions for the discussion are: how have Josephine and her father lives been different? Next question. Do you agree that Josephine is too young to think about things like house prices? Next, what should she think about, in your opinion? So, you should write a short profile of Josephine. It will be a formative assessment, and that is why you should write this profile. So that to write it perfectly in an appropriate way, you should use a passage about Jerry as a model. So self-assessment, which will durate for 10 minutes. So your writing will be taken for 6 minutes, then 4 minutes for proofreading, and then you will self-assess. So, as I have mentioned before, you should write a short profile of Josephine, imagining her lifestyle. There are descriptors for you to use, to be aware while doing this task. So, you will achieve if you write 6 sentences. If the structure of informal writing was quite right. If you have made only one grammar mistake, not more, and you will achieve if you made only one spelling mistake. Good luck! So now we are going to role play. So firstly, I will explain to you what we are going to do. Contradiction between what one wants or what one may effort is a reason for many conflicts. On the one hand, children want their parents to leave them alone and not to interfere with their things. On the other hand, parents feel they have a right to give advice to their children as they care for them and earn the living for the family. So now I'll explain you the rules of the role play. So you will be working in groups of 3. So distribute the roles of a parent, son or daughter, and a consultant or family therapist. The parent and the child will discuss the problem based on the contradiction mentioned above. The consultant will advise and reconcile the two parties. So as for the child, you are 13-14 years old and want to dye your hair into green color, as one of your friends did. So don't forget that you should figure out the reasons why you should be allowed to do it. As for the parent, you're opposed to this. You don't want your child to dye his hair into green color. You feel that your child shouldn't be different from his or her peers, as you have never done it. Think of reasons why they should not be allowed to. Consultant, family therapist, your role is that you should help the family to find a right solution. So, and now you are going to assess each other. So it will take some 5 minutes of this role play. So you are to evaluate your partner's participation according to the following descriptors. So you achieve if you give 3 relevant arguments, quite persuasive ones. Then you will achieve if you state your point of view quite confidentially, that you will not hesitate while persuading us in your own point of view. So as for the self-evaluation sheet, so now you are to complete all these tables according to the questions. The first question, what have I understood? The next one, what haven't I understood? And you should write there the examples that you haven't understood. What have I learned? And the last one, how do I evaluate my skills, not knowledge? Please be aware of it. So now, after having done all these tasks connected with formative assessment, self-assessment, I would like you to refer yourself to the learning objectives of our lesson that I have presented at the beginning of the lesson, and try to understand if you have achieved all of them. Use imagination to express thoughts, ideas, experiences and feelings. Discuss whether each generation thinks differently. Understand specific information and detail in text. Negotiate in a group and work as a team, respecting each other's opinion. Highlight and analyze the problems connected with growing pains. So now, I know you should identify and point out why each generation thinks differently. The second one, how to state my own opinion of you. And the third one, how to analyze some problems and give solution. I believe that each of you has proved and has managed to achieve all these things. Resources that I have used for my presentation.